As you know, Bill Maher was invited to the White House to have a private dinner with President Donald Trump. Kid Rock arranged all of this. And of course, everyone's like, boy, I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that meeting. Wonder what happened. I wonder what went down. Well, Mr. Rock appeared on Fox and Friends, and he gave us a little bit of insight into what happened at that dinner.
All right, tell us what happened from start to finish in 30 seconds.
In 30 seconds, I went on Bill's show. I went on his podcast, and I said, man, nothing happens if people don't break bread together and meet face to face. He's been one of the president's hardest critics. And we came to dinner, me, Bill, Dana White, and it could not have been better. Everyone was so surprised, so pleasant. The most shocking thing to me was, Bill's obviously a very big liberal, been very hard on the president, but he's donated a lot of money to other politicians. You've had Biden, Clinton, Obama, everybody. He had never been to the White House, and the president was so gracious. He took us up to the private residence. We saw the Gettysburg Address in the Lincoln bedroom, and I was like, "You've never been here, Bill?" And I was like, "How about this, President Trump? Extending this olive branch," and we talked about things we had in common, ending wokeness, securing the border. The president was asking him what he thought about policy, going on with Iran and Israel and things. It just meant, it blew my mind. It was, right. I was, very, very proud.
Very cool. And that's kind of what America is supposed to be all about, isn't it? Listen, he's not going to change Bill Maher's mind about anything. And Maher's been pretty harsh on Trump, and even worse on you and I, on Trump voters, Trump supporters, or basically anybody who doesn't agree with Bill Maher. That's how the intolerant left is, let's face it. So I appreciate Mr. Rock making this happen. We're fellow Detroiters, Michiganders, and it's cool to see Mr. Rock. Yes, that's right, Mr. Rock. What else are you going to call him? I don't know him well enough to call him Kid. So Kid Rock made that happen, and that's pretty cool insight into this sort of meeting of two big personalities, Bill Maher, crazy atheist leftist with a big platform, and Donald Trump, the president of the United States. There's also something else that's sort of cool that happened. You saw that Kid Rock explained just now that Bill Maher has had some pretty insulting things to say about Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump has had some insulting things to say about Bill Maher as well. And apparently, Bill Maher showed up to this dinner with a document that had all of the insults that Trump has called him over the years. What did Trump do?
2015, and he has been relentless, really, ever since.
Yeah, well, Bill, when he showed up at the White House, he had actually brought a list of insults Trump had said about him and gave it to Trump. And what did he do? He signed it, which is very Trumpian. And they laughed and they laughed. Kudos to Maher. He knows this is going to burn whatever bridge that remains with the tolerant left. But he said full steam ahead. And you got to give credit to Kid Rock. He went out on a limb, as a bridge between two quarreling people that he happens to be friends with. And that is sharing the risk at its best. And what do you do when you share the risk? It causes other people to share the risk too. So both of these guys had something to lose, but they put their egos aside because they realized there's nothing to lose at all once you put your egos aside. And because Kid Rock was able to take the risk, they all decided to take the risk. And I think they're going to win from it. The scariest part for a lot of people is finding out that Trump might be a good person, because you've sunk so much of your energy and your life into him being bad. So you might not want to meet him, because the moment that you have to relinquish any of that sunk cost, what's left? That's why you still have, and I think it's easier for Democrats. It's not for never Trump Republicans. They can't let it go because their entire identity is wrapped around that definition of who they are. They go into a room with them, that sunk cost destroys them.
That's why I never want to meet AOC.
Yes.
It'll make it harder for me to ridicule her.
Yes, that is so true.
I don't want to be empathetic.
Yes, that's why I wish I never met you.
Yeah, exactly.
What? Woo. Did you just say I would be attracted to AOC? Where did you get that
You're
from?
a live straight man.
By the way, it was at that moment where Jesse Waters should have said, "Excuse me, I am a married man, and I would never."
2015, and
he didn't do that. He should have. Let's move on to a little bit more Bill Maher insight, because we're all going to be watching keenly if there's going to be some sort of change in his delivery, because Gutfeld nailed it. Not only is this dangerous for a liberal to meet Donald Trump and find out that he's not a monster, but what's even more dangerous is for Bill Maher to show up on his set there in Hollywood and tell his audience of screaming, barking, clapping seals that they've been wrong all this time. It's one thing for Bill Maher to realize that Donald Trump is not a monster. What happens when he has to tell his audience that, or his guests that? Here's one of his guests, Chris Cuomo, who I think is a little extra jacked today. I guess he knew he was going to be on the podcast there, where they drink booze and smoke pot and let their hair down. So let's hear Bill Maher talking about the prospect of having dinner with Donald Trump.
You're going to meet with the president.
I am.
So Kid Rock makes it happen. What do you think has been the response so far? What do you think it will be, and why are you doing it? Which I'm totally for, by the way, and I love it.
I get it. Well, I'm doing it because, first of all, it was presented as
A dare.
not a dare. No, just like, maybe this is a beginning to heal America. Now, I don't have some sort of complex where I think I can heal America. I can't. Okay, let's get that clear. I'm not going to be healing America. But if two guys who've been at each other for so long, I mean, it's kind of a Nixon to China thing. I have the credentials. There was nobody who was harder on Trump or more prescient about the fact that he wasn't going to leave office voluntarily than I was. I feel like I have the credentials. But they also respect me because I'm honest about the woke train to crazy town. And I don't shrink from that. And I've also lost a lot of fans for that. The woke people have left the building, and I'm willing to make that sacrifice. But it does give you a certain credibility. So I just think to meet somebody, first of all, it's an honor to be invited to the White House.
Yes, it is.
And I've already had a couple of people who I said to them, you know, I'm just going to take it as a backhanded compliment that you glide right past the idea that little Bill Maher from Rivervale, New Jersey, just a humble kid from the suburbs, was invited for a private dinner to the White House. You glide right past that to how dare you talk to him, and that you're not impressed by it at all. I'm impressed by it a lot. I'm impressed the out of it. I get to go to the White House, and yes, that is the structure of this dinner, is just let's talk. Let's talk to each other face to face. Let's not stop shouting from 3,000 miles away, you know? So if they expect me to be leaving in a MAGA hat, they're going to be very disappointed, but I know they don't. And I think it's going to be, you know, look, it probably will accomplish very little, but you got to try, man. You got to try.
I love it. You know Kanye. Bill Maher, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Love being with you, bud.
Yeah, this was so much fun.
And I love that you're going. I think it's great for exactly that.
It is great, isn't it?
100%.
Yes.
And I will celebrate it when it happens.
Great. I appreciate that.
Wait, that was the Chris Cuomo project? I thought that was the Bill Maher podcast. I'm confused. We all have our platforms, don't we? Listen, that was cool. And I relate to that. You know, for those of you who don't know, or if you're new to the show, I wasn't always a talk radio host and columnist and streamer and political analyst. I spent the first half of my adult professional career in the Broadway theater business. That's a part of entertainment that is, you know, if Hollywood leans to the left, the theater business leans so far to the left that they've fallen and they can't get up. It doesn't get more liberal than the theater business. And a lot of my good friends that I've had for decades are still in the business. And I met them through that business. I was always a conservative Republican. I just kept my mouth shut for the most part and kept my head down because I don't think you need to talk about politics when you're on the job necessarily. And Lord knows it would have been difficult for me sometimes based on the setting. By the way, I wasn't an actor. I was in the management and production side of the business. But I remember when I started my new career and I started my new life, I still have all those friends. They're in my Facebook groups, right? I got the opportunity to interview Donald Trump at the White House in the East Room, right there in the White House back in 2017. That's a big deal. I don't care who you are. I don't care who the president is. If Biden had invited me to interview him, that would have been a big deal. I started my career when Obama was president. That would have been a big deal. Now, I try to keep politics off my Facebook page, but here was a picture of me in the East Room at the White House with the President of the United States. And I posted that picture on my Facebook. And I said, listen, I know that this guy inspires a lot of strong political feelings from a lot of my friends, but this was a pretty special day in my life, and I just wanted to share it with you. Man. Well, I found out who my real friends were that day. I'll just leave it at that. Pretty rough. But what you just heard from Bill Maher there, when he explained that I am a liberal Democrat, but I'm turning my back on woke. Woke is garbage. Woke is going to destroy us. Woke has left the building, and he says he lost friends over that. That fine line that he's trying to walk, that needle he's trying to thread, that's the biggest, most existential danger to Republicans at the ballot box going forward. Take a look at this segment on CNN yesterday about where Democrats, especially Democrats in Congress, are in terms of approval ratings.
Holy Toledo. Voters' views of the Democrats in Congress among all voters disapprove 68%. And look at the approved number, just 21%, even lower than the Democratic Party at large. This is the lowest on record for Democrats, according to Quinnipiac University polling. You think these numbers are bad? Let's go to this side of the screen. We'll look how Democratic voters feel. Get this. The plurality of Democratic voters disapprove of Democrats in Congress at 49%, and just 40% approve. Horrible, horrible, horrible.
Correct. Although as a Republican, I see it as fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. See that number right there. American voters disapprove of the Democrats in Congress, 68%, and only 21% approve. That right there, that's woke. That's what woke has done to the Democrats. And if the party can somehow figure out a way to stay liberal and lose woke, they've got a chance. And that's my big concern about this dinner with Donald Trump and Bill Maher, because Bill Maher is now going to get a lot of attention for this. I'm hoping that the woke mafia on the left, they punish him and they're unforgiving and they're as intolerant as they've always been. That's what I'm hoping will happen. But if not, and if somehow he can be a symbol of a liberal and a Democrat who can tolerate being in the room with Trump or a Trump voter and supporter for that matter, and lose the woke, which is what Gavin Newsom's saying he's trying to do, but he's not really. I mean, what is Gavin Newsom saying? Well, I just think we need to listen to Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon and Trevor. Oh, thank you so much, Gavin. Oh, I feel so happy that you're going to listen to me. Oh, go yourself. Listen. Don't condescend and patronize me. You should be listening to us because we won, because we're the majority, because we know where the pulse of the American people are. I don't need you to listen to me, Governor of California. I need you to let me in the room so I can have a say in what's going on in the largest state in the nation. But no, Gavin Newsom as governor doesn't give a crap about listening, let alone letting people into the room to actually have a say in how the state is run. It has been one state authoritarian rule at the hands of Gavin Newsom. Oh, well, we should listen to them, but then we'll do whatever the hell we want. Yeah, Gavin Newsom's playing that game, but Bill Maher is actually walking the walk. And if the Democrats can figure out a way to tread that line, that could be trouble for Republicans. The good news is, there are very few Bill Mahers, and there are a whole lot of Jasmine Crockett's.